Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day life. Let's start with the video.
My in-laws have welcomed me, I'm 35, and considered me to be one of their own from the moment my late wife introduced me to everyone. I felt like I immediately clicked and fit right in, and that made our marriage so much easier. It was just one of those things that happened to further develop my conviction of something. And that something was that my marriage was meant to be, and that the universe was getting its stuff together to make sure it survives and stays as healthy as it may be for as long as possible. I guess the universe did live up to that assumption of mine, because my marriage did fulfill what it was for until dying breaths. I guess the title gives it away, but my wife passed away a couple of years ago in a devastating and slightly surreal way. She had been battling depression for as long as I've known her, and I always found a way to manage things with her or help her cope with the constantly and consistently damaging influence that mental illness has on a person's life. I tried doing my best to be there for her and shut down her demons whenever they got too loud, but my influence in her was only so strong, and I could always only do so much. At the end of the day, the strength that it had on her wasn't a result of what kind of person she is, nor does it say anything about it. I only hope this was common knowledge, and I didn't have to probably jeopardize my relationship with my late wife's family, whom I love, for the sake of informing my sister-in-law of this. I remember being so happy when my mother-in-law called me to tell me that one of the youngsters of the family had gotten engaged and that my in-laws were hosting a party for him, and I was on top of their guest list. I guess a part of me assumed that with the passing of my wife and the way I had handled my emotions and coped with her death in the first few months would lead to my relationship with my in-laws' fallout. Hearing them still putting in the time and care to make sure I know damn well I'm still as much of a family member of theirs as I had been genuinely brought me plenty of peace and ease of mind. I got all flittery on the inside and literally started planning out in my head what I was going to wear and what I would be saying to make a good impression and stay in touch with them. I'm not really sure why I felt such a strong urge to connect, but I guess it felt like I would be keeping a part of my wife alive within me by doing so. Moving on from that, a little bit of background on my late wife's relationship with her family. She grew up in a loving, caring, and warm household that provided her with the love and care she would need to become a textbook kind of healthy and functioning human being, which just goes to prove that what's mental is equipped into the mind regardless. And they were well off financially, which meant that they constantly hosted parties and gatherings for everyone else in the family. And since my wife is the only girl and had one other brother, she always connected quite deeply with most of her cousins that were her age. She would always tell me stories about their adventures, and before we met, they were her rock and stone, and she could always rely on them to help her pick up her torn apart pieces whenever she needed support. That's the reason I felt pressured to make a good impression on all of them, and that in turn translated to me deciding that they would be the people I would try to connect with most when I get to that engagement party. I get there the day of, and I started walking around, making small talk with everyone, trying my best not to get emotional while walking around in my parents-in-law's house, which I hadn't stepped foot in since my wife died. She loved that house, and I found myself zoning out and reminiscing the stories and good times we had spent there in a way that comforted yet devastated me. I already sensed that this would have serious repercussions on my mental health once the party was over, and even began worrying that I would explode on everyone during it, which is partially what ended up happening. I remember that I was staring at a painting and thinking back at the time when my wife told me the story of her and her cousin accidentally tearing it and then smudging it when they tried to fix it, and literally having to sneak it out of the house to get it fixed up because her dad loved it so much. There was a glimpse of hope lingering within me as I looked away. I automatically looked around to the cousin that was involved in said story. I found her standing and talking to my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law's wife, and seemed to be deep in what seemed like a mildly interesting conversation. Now, I noticed that the cousin seemed extremely annoyed, but the glass of wine in her hand and the sloppiness of her glances and responses made me believe she was probably too drunk to react to whatever was being told to her. I nudged my way closer towards them, slowly because I didn't want to just walk up to them and barge in on the conversation. I don't really know what made me so determined to participate, but something about the calmness of the memory made me want to talk to the cousin, even if she seemed a bit too loopy. Listen, I don't really know why I did most things that I did that day. This is just one of the many things that I look back on and think to myself, why so determined? Anyways, as I was getting closer and hoping they would be talking about something I could participate in, I was unpleasantly surprised to hear my wife's name being shushed around by my sister-in-law. I stood to the side and listened in as she went on and on about how suicide is selfish and people shouldn't glorify nor feel sad for people who decide to take their own lives without any consideration to the damage and torture it would inflict on their loved ones. The cousin literally had to sit down and zone out into the distance, and the sister-in-law seemed so pressed by my wife's death that she kept talking even though it was obvious she was only talking to herself. She went on and on about how the brother-in-law's health has been dragged to mud since his sister died, and she blames her for derailing the lives of an entire family, how if she actually loved them, she wouldn't do something so impulsive and commit to a short-term solution to a long-term problem in a way that would tear apart more people that her, and I quote, stupid mind could put together. I guess that was a drop that overflowed my cup. I had been listening in for some time by then, and I was absolutely infuriated. The abundant sum of feelings I had been feeling that night literally controlled me as I walked over to her, took the glass from the cousin's hand and pushed her aside, spilled it on sister-in-law's very much white attire, and smashed it near her feet. I then went on a rant about how if she was so bothered by my wife's death and influenced by it, she should at least have the human decency of talking poorly about her when I'm not here, or grow the balls to say it to my face. I told her that if there weren't kids around, I'd use many other expressions that would teach her the lesson, and then slipped on to look at everyone and tell them that if they too wish to say something about my wife, there's plenty of wine to go around and I'd be more than happy to shower them with it. Just hope I don't come across any acid anytime soon. My sister-in-law left the house immediately, and although my brother-in-law seemed pissed at me that day, he didn't say anything about it afterwards and invited me many times to hang out. And I think it would be safe to say that this was a key point in what resulted in their divorce. I apologized to my parents-in-law and couldn't quite decipher whether they were holding anything against me for ruining the party that they were hosting or not. But I definitely didn't get invited to any after that happened. Not the asshole. Not sure why you didn't get invited because what you said and did was justifiable. You can't really be blamed for not trusting anyone because you were literally standing before someone that you once trusted and that basically stabbed your wife in the back because of the struggles she had to endure as a mentally ill person. You're a good man. If your in-laws don't see it, you shouldn't stay anywhere near them. Not the asshole. Brother-in-law is the real MVP. She doesn't seem like a jolly person to be around to me, and I guess he made that realization too. Irreversible indeed. Not the asshole. I would have thrown these hands so fast. One of my biggest pet peeves is people who try blaming the mentally ill for their illness. Like, boy, would you walk up to someone with heart cancer and go on a rant about how if they loved their family members, they wouldn't die to their unchangeable disease? My 36F daughter, 6F, has a friend, 6F, whose mother I have frequently had issues with. Mom B, 30s F, and her husband, M30s, are what's yours is mine people, and have taught their daughter that mindset. My daughter has a very fragile teddy that her granny gifted her when she was christened. I've mended this teddy 100 times, but it's still falling apart because my daughter carries it literally everywhere. She's super gentle with it and has come up with her own rules that you have to follow to hold and play with the teddy. My daughter asked to have a play date sleepover with her friend a few months ago. After talking to her parents, I agreed. Turns out the girls fought like cats and dogs over her teddy because the friend didn't want to follow the rules and didn't understand that if she can't follow, then she can't play. The friend threw my daughter's teddy. She called me to come home early. Next day, I guess they sorted it and were friends once again. My daughter does not play with the teddy at school. She just puts him in her backpack, as far as I know, because she's scared other kids will hurt Teddy, and I'm pretty sure this is the only reason they're still friends. The girls have wanted to have sleepovers multiple times since, but after talking to her friend's mother and being told that if my daughter brings her teddy into Mom B's house, then Mom B's rules go, and my daughter will have to share whether her friend isn't careful or not. I've denied. She suggested they sleep over at my house, but I've seen how her daughter acts at school and on the playground, picking up toys that aren't hers and just running off, fighting with other kids over their toys, etc. And I just don't think she would play with said teddy properly, even under my roof. Am I the asshole for this? I've talked to other parents in her class who had the same problem and just hid the toy. But I don't think my daughter should have to go without the teddy all night for someone else's behavior. Mild, everyone sucks here. The other mom sucks for obvious reasons, and much more than you do. But you're also doing your kid a disservice by not showing her how to enforce her own boundaries and deal with the natural consequences. Asking her directly would make the most sense here. Does your daughter want to go on the sleepover? If she does she want to leave Teddy at home or that he doesn't get messed up? So that he doesn't get messed up? Ultimately, it was bound to happen that there would be a situation where it wasn't appropriate for her to bring Teddy, and learning how to cope with that is an important skill. Precious items like that should not be taken to school or kept out when other kids come over. My daughter is 7, and whenever we have play dates, I have her get out toys she wants to share and play with. Or if she's fine sharing most things in her room, we put away the special things. Also, these girls are 6, and they're going to do boundary stomping things like this because it's part of their learning process. When the girls come over, it's okay to teach her your house rules, and it sounds like they need to be supervised. You can teach them both to share, take turns, ask for permission, etc. I'm kinda in the you're the asshole camp for how scandalized you seem to be over a 6-year-old who hasn't yet learned this stuff. And because you want to deprive your daughter of playtime with his friend because of it. You're the asshole for not talking this specific problem out with your daughter. She wants a sleepover with her friend. She also wants Teddy to be safe. Which does she care about more? Does she mind having Teddy put someplace safe for the night so she can have a sleepover? Does she have any ideas on how to keep Teddy safe when friends are over to play? If she's okay with Teddy in her backpack during school, would she be okay with Teddy in her backpack during the party? And the backpack hung someplace safe? Just as during school, choosing whether or not to have a party and what to do to keep Teddy safe is something your daughter needs a say in. Don't deny her social activities she's shown she wants just because you're worried about Teddy without talking to her about the situation and finding the solution she is happy with. I, 20F, am a university student who lives with my parents. They got me a cat when I was 16 and then another one when I was 17. I've grown really attached to them. I'm their sole caretaker. I do everything, and no one else in my family is responsible for them. They're permanent fixtures in my life, and they help me through so much. The second cat, let's call him C, is super attached to me, and the vet suspects he has separation anxiety. He gets really scared of other people, but is really affectionate and clingy with me. The problem is that my dad is allergic to him. He isn't allergic to the first cat, but he sneezes like crazy around the second one. He travels for work, so for every 3 months he's only home for 1. His allergies seem to get worse when he's away for longer, and the cats are not allowed out of my room when he's home. I've developed a system. I make sure to change whenever I leave my room so there isn't any fur or dander. It seems to work, but sometimes my brother or my mother enter my room and my dad starts sneezing. For reference, if he stays home for a month, then he'd be sneezing for a week. He refuses to take any allergy pills to help with it. Last month, it got really bad because I had surgery, and my mom kept entering my room to help me. She keeps asking me to give away C, and she thinks it's fine because I still have the first. She calls me a bad daughter and says that I don't care about my dad. It's driving me crazy because she says the same thing 5 times a week. Am I the asshole for refusing to do so? My parents and sister believe I am, but I plan to move in a year to another country. We have a house in that country, but my mom just told me that the cats aren't allowed to live there with me, even if my dad will be there at most 3 months a year. Even if I don't move, I'm 20 years old, and I won't be living with my parents forever. Edit. My dad has never asked me to give away my cat, but he complains to my mom, and she is the one who asks. She has never asked me to give away my cat before last year. Also, his allergies aren't bad. All that happens is sneezing and nothing serious. Edit. Again, since everyone is asking me to move out. My parents will not let me move out unless I'm married or I'm moving for school. It's a cultural thing. We're South Asian. I don't have the option to simply move out. I wish I did. I also can't legally work while studying in the country I live in, but I am looking into moving somewhere else in a year. Everyone sucks here. They shouldn't have let you keep the cat for so long if it's an issue, but you're also living under the roof of someone who is allergic to your cat. Like your dad, I'm fine with some cats, but others I cannot be in the same building as. I know for my cat allergy that I have to take cetirizine every couple of hours when I'm in the home of a cat I'm allergic to for it to actually help. For references, they're generally sold as once-a-day treatments. If taken regularly, they can really mess with your sleep and have other side effects like nausea, diarrhea, and dry mouth. See Ted Lasso for why this is a problem. Can't you find another place for your cat to stay until you move out? And by move out, I mean to a house that your dad doesn't own and would potentially have to avoid because of your cat. You're the asshole. This situation sucks for everyone. Giving up a pet is brutal. However, I would put the health of my family members above keeping a pet. Allergy meds and shots? I hate when people say, just take a pill, no big deal. Meds and shots don't always work. They have lots of side effects. Some are contraindicated with other medications. It's not always as simple as just taking a pill. Repeated exposure to a severe allergen can cause serious health consequences. This is not a healthy situation for your dad, even if he is gone a lot. Could someone else keep the cat for you until you move out? Can you move out now? What's more important, the cat? Your dad? Living rent-free? You have some grown-up choices to make. Again, I get it. I would be sad too if I had to give up my dogs. I did have to return one rescue due to allergies. No hate. I gave them a very generous donation to support the dog until he was adopted. I felt horrible, but I had to put the health of the humans first.